Good morning, everyone. Agud Chodesh as well. Today is the first day of Cheshvan, which is a month that has no holidays. It's called Mar Cheshvan because it has that almost bitterness to it because you're coming from a month that's full of so many holidays. Our Parsha is Noach, and the hero of this Parsha is Noach, who is saved from the great flood. I want to talk today about compliments, about giving compliments, about receiving compliments. If you study Torah, you'll realize there are not many people that Torah says their greatness. Torah tells us about many characters, many special characters, but you don't find that Torah is very praisey, if that's a word, very praisey about these people. We know what they've done. We're not hiding it, but you don't find that Torah says this guy was great, he was special, he was amazing. You don't find all that. Actions speak louder than words. For example, there was a man, his name was Misushelach. He died when he was 969 years old. It's a long life. Now, Misushelach passed away just as the flood was supposed to begin. And Torah tells us, the Medrash tells us, that the flood was delayed by 7 days in order not to take away from the mourning period or the eulogizing period of Misushelach. So he was very special. He was a great person, and as a result of his greatness, we even pushed off the flood in his honor. But Torah doesn't tell us all that about him. We know about it from commentaries, we know about it from Medrash and so on. We don't know about it from Torah itself. Why does Torah not tell us the greatness? Let's take the next character, Noach. Noach was a very special person, as we know. He was the one that was saved, the one that was chosen, the best from all those people to survive the flood. Yet, last week's portion, when we're first introduced to him, Torah tells us he found favor in God's eyes. Doesn't tell us that he's so great, doesn't tell us that he's so amazing. Let's just say that we're pretty modest with the praise about him. Another person, Chanoich, great person, but he passed away. In those times, he was considered to be young when he passed away. And Rashi tells us the reason why he passed away is because he was a good person, but he was about to embark on a bad path. He was about to make some very bad decisions and do some terrible things. So Hashem took him before his time in order that he should remain in a good person, holy, and he shouldn't have complete, and he shouldn't have that opportunity to mess up. So you find that Hashem doesn't tell us, oh, he was great, he was special. We learn from the commentaries that he died early because Hashem didn't want him to continue as he was about to do something very, very bad. Yet if you look at this week's portion, when Torah introduces Noach, Torah tells us that Noach was amazing. Torah says Noach was a ish, which is a very honorable term for a man, for a human. Tzaddik, righteous, which is probably the highest term that you could describe of a person's spiritual level. Tamim, he was whole, complete, sincere. He went with God. All of these expressions are very praiseworthy and very uncharacteristic for Torah's style of speech. Even when we're talking about good people. Moshe, Torah doesn't tell us the word tzaddik about Moshe. It doesn't say the word tzaddik about Avram. It doesn't say the word tzaddik about all the special people that we have. The only other person, and it's not even in the Chumash, not even in the 5 books of Moses, the only other person that we know is called a tzaddik is Yosef. Joseph, the son of Jacob. The very end, but in the prophets, he's referred to as a tzaddik, and even then not by his name, and so on. But in Torah itself, in the written Torah, before the prophets, which are also considered to be written, but in the 5 books of Moses, the only one that's referred to as tzaddik is Noach. And our question is not so much why he's referred to that way, because we know why he is, he's special, but how come all of a sudden, up until this point, compliments are very held back? And now, it's out of the ordinary, and after that, there's also very little compliments. You know the joke about the woman that came, she complained. She was talking to the marriage counselor, and she says, my husband never tells me that he loves me. So the counselor turned to the husband and said, what gives? Do you not love her? He said, listen, before we got married, I said, I love you. And if anything changes, I'll let you know. Torah is very careful about words in general, especially about compliments, and it doesn't say much. But when it comes to Noach in our parsha, not before, not later, it tells us some very beautiful things about him. Why? So I want to answer this question with a story, one of the beautiful stories. There was a rabbi, a fine Hasidic Jew by the name of Rabbi Beryl Baumgarten. He was the Rebbe's shliach, the Rebbe's emissary to Argentina. Before he went to Argentina, he was a teacher really running a yeshiva in Brooklyn. Now this is in the 60s, a yeshiva for teenagers in Brooklyn in the 60s had its fair share of challenges. And one particular Shabbos, Rabbi Baumgarten is shocked to realize that one of the students came in to the Shabbos Farbringen, to the gathering, to the meal, and he smells like smoke. He smells like he just had a cigarette. Whoops. Like he just had a cigarette. So he says, what's he going to do here? He decided he has to kick him out. The general rule was that if somebody does something wrong, we could correct it, we could help him, we could show him, as long as he's not a bad influence on others. But the moment he's going to become a bad influence for others, we can't allow that behavior to continue because it'll take down the whole school. And it's a general principle in many schools. Someone misbehaves, it could be dealt with. You can work with them. There's consequences, there's punishment, there's some kind of disciplinary measures, as long as he's not being a bad influence on others. But if he's getting others to mess up, to break rules, to destroy the protocol, and frankly to have a bad influence, then that has to be changed. So this person, this Rabbi Baumgarten decided, I have to kick him out. And he wrote a letter to the Rebbe telling him about his decision to throw a certain boy out of the school because of this particular issue. The Rebbe wrote back to him a note. This is probably through the secretary. That's probably not even going through the mail. The Rebbe says, go look at Avos de Reb Nosson, chapter 12. It's a very holy source. It's a book. And it says, look there in chapter 12. And he goes there and he looks. And it talks there about the great tzaddik, Aaron HaKohen, the high priest, the brother of Moshe. And it says there that when Aaron would meet someone who was a sinner, he would come over to him and give him a big hug. Doesn't say hug, but he would come over to him and say, how are you? How are you doing? He would tell him, I love you. You're such a special person. You're amazing. A sinner. Now, after that interaction, when Aaron was so warm and nice and friendly to this person, that individual, that sinner, would walk away and he's about to sin again. And he would think to himself, how can I disappoint Aaron? He loves me. He thinks highly of me. He's interacting with me. And I'm going to go and stoop to that level. Someone that's buddies, if you will, has a relationship with the high priest of that magnitude. Why would I behave in a bad way? And through this behavior, he caused so many sinners to change their ways. What he did was he showed them, I respect you. You're much better. I don't look at you as a sinner. I don't look at you as someone that's a failure. I don't look at you as some kind of low person. On the contrary, I think you're amazing. Doesn't condone what he did, but it's a whole different approach. And Rabbi Baumgarten got the message just from the Rebbe telling him, look at this in this book, in this chapter, of how he's supposed to behave. And he called over this student, this teenager, that he caught smelled like smoke, which means he was smoking on Shabbos in the yeshiva. So he went over to him and he started talking to him about how good he is and how much potential he has and how he's very proud of the advancements that he's made and his learning, whatever he found honest compliments to give him. And this student turned his life around because He felt that if the teacher, the head of the yeshiva, is respecting him and praising him and believing in him, then things will be great. That's why in our parsha, Noach, Hashem doesn't say any compliments about him. Very minimal, like everyone else in the Torah. Till it comes to the flood. When it comes to the parsha of the flood, Noach is now faced with a tremendous challenge. He has to get up against the entire world, one individual. And he's telling them, you guys are bad, you guys are sinners, we have to change, God's bringing a flood, right? All these things. So he's all, how's he going to do this? Who am I? Am I that great? Can I stand up against all of humanity? And at that time, humanity was pretty bad. And we've come a long way, I hope. And Noach has to get up and really tell them that I'm building an ark, and God is going to flood this world, and now is the time to change. How does he have what it takes? So Hashem started to compliment him. Noach, you're a tzaddik. He's a tzaddik. He's a tamim. He's whole. He's going in the ways of God, and so on and so forth. He is praising him for a purpose, like that teacher that's praising the student, not just to make him feel good, because it gives him certain strengths. It allows him to tap into himself. When you're dealing with education, when you're trying to educate a child, you're trying to show a child how they should behave, you want to get something better out of them. Don't criticize, knock, push off. Tell them how great they are. Tell them how much you believe in them. Not, that's a terrible thing to do. How dare you do that? Why don't you say, someone like you doesn't behave that way? Because the subtle message that gives the child is, I am better than that behavior. Hashem is telling Noach, you are great. And it's true, you're a tzaddik, you're whole, you're following in my ways. And now when he has to stand up to the world, and he has to behave, and has to say things that are not popular, because it's right, and he's going to get all these comments back. Who do you think you are, Mr. Holy, Mr. Righteous, all that kind of stuff. He has that ammunition, he has that confidence, he has that build that he could do it. And that is also why Hashem decided to save Noach through a teva, through an ark. He could have saved him in many different ways. Because an ark, in Hebrew, the Alter Rebbe tells us that the ark, teva, also means words, not just an ark. And the key and the solution is words. It's how you're going to speak and how you're going to be spoken to. That's how you're going to be saved from floods. In general, in life, and things go certain, let's just say they're stormy. The way to save yourself is through those words. When you're dealing in any relationship, I don't mean just children or students. There's two ways to go about it. You could go forceful, and you could put down, and you could criticize, or you could try to build. You could express through words how special that person is, how much you appreciate what they've done. It doesn't mean that they're perfect. It doesn't mean that what they've done is not wrong. It doesn't mean they have no room for improvement. But you have two methods to go. You have the method which doesn't work as effectively, where you criticize and you put down or you demand. But then you have a method which is way more effective, and that's what Hashem does in Torah. You build, you motivate, you uplift. And that's why all of a sudden Torah says compliments. And not just any compliments, huge compliments. There's no one else in the whole Torah that's called tzaddik, like Moshe Rabbeinu, like Noach was. Even Moses himself, because he needed it, and it works. So friends, I'm going to sign off now, but I want to wish all of you a great day and a great month. And when you're faced with a challenge, an interpersonal one, whether it's with children, students, spouse, relationship, coworkers, whatever it is, use the method of building. Give a compliment. We're not in denial. We're not avoiding issues, but we're choosing to go the positive route and to build and to motivate and to uplift to get that change that we're looking for. If you like this video, share, like, subscribe, and tell me about it in the comments. Sei gesund.